Please unmute. Abhi हुए हैं, अभी एक दो सब, the last 2-3 lines only. So that otherwise it was going.
Okay. So just I repeat that Dr. Parvadaji has received several national and international awards and recognitions, including the most prestigious Padma Bhushan in 1998. Other awards conferred on him are Rafi Ahmed Kidwai Memorial Prize, ICR Team Research Award, Hickey Award, Om Prakash Bhasin Award, Asia Pacific Seed Association Special Award, CGIAR Award, Lifetime Awards from the various institutions, including the Agricultural Scientists in the America, Dr. Harbhajan Singh Memorial Award, BP Pal Award. The long list. Important is the Barlog Award, ISCA Gold Medal, Gold Medalist for Ministry of Agriculture of Armenia and Vietnam, Lifetime Achievement Award of Agriculture Today, A.B. Joshi Memorial Award, Professor Kanyan Memorial Award, Rishi Shiromani Samman from Mahindra and Mahindra, and only recently in the last 2-3 days, he was awarded by the National Academy of Biological Sciences also. He has been confirmed the fellowship of the several national science academies like Indian National Science Academy, National Academy of Agricultural Sciences, National Academy of Sciences India, and was elected as General President of the prestigious Indian Science Congress in 2001. Among international recognitions, he was elected as Fellow of Agricultural Academies of Russia, Georgia, Armenia, Tajikistan, and the Third World Academy of Science, TAWAS. He has also been the president of more than a dozen agricultural scientific societies. So the introduction is too long. Otherwise, all 6 days, I think it goes to introduce our chief guest. And today I find in the net that on the 75th birthday of his, the society has published one souvenir book for only on the contribution of Dr. Parvadaji, and it was 436 pages book. So you can see that what are the contributions of Dr. Parvada sir to the country and to the agricultural sciences. So with these words, I welcome sir and I invite you to enlighten all our participants. Dr. Parvada sir.
सर आप शायद म्यूट हो गए सर फिर से परोड़ा साहब नहीं है now he is joined. Yeah, sir has joined.
Sir, welcome you and we all are eager to listen you.
Unmute करना है.
Sir, kindly unmute yourself. Parvada sir, please unmute कर लीजिए.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Yeah, we are able to hear you. Namaskar, sir. Good evening.
Okay, good evening. I think there was some disruption in between. So, am I supposed to start now?
Yes.
Please, sir. Please. Yeah, we're waiting for you, sir.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Dr. Hinder Oberoi, Dr. Sunil Parikh, all participants in this important online faculty development program, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here to share some of my views with you on this very important subject that has been selected by NIFTEM. And we all know how important NIFTEM is with regard to post-harvest management and value addition. We all are aware that in case of horticultural crops, the food losses are remaining reasonably higher than other crops and sometimes ranging between 10 to even 40%. The stage has come when we have to take care of post-harvest management rather than only production side. On production side, India has done remarkably well over the last 5 decades. Our production from horticultural crops has exceeded even food crops today, as against 335 million tons of food grains. Now we have in our country more than 351 million tons only last year harvested. We all also feel that unless we manage the perishable commodities, which are mainly fruits and horticulture crops and vegetables, farmer will not be able to get the relative income which otherwise is expected. We also see that there is need for value addition. We also are aware of the fact that globally, when we look at methane emission and also the climate change, that contribution from agriculture is around 30%, 13% from crops and livestock side and fertilizer side, 11% from our land degradation, deforestation side, and about 6% from the perishable commodities, that is post-harvest losses. So we have to definitely take care of our production that we have and see that not only we increase the income of the farmer through better management, but also in the process contribute from our side to the extent of reducing carbon methane emission at the national level and meet our commitment to Paris Agreement. Having said this, I see that now we have to really look in the context of not only producing and consuming ourselves, but the opportunities are there for large scale export, for which we will have to make sure that we meet the global standards. We have better laboratories for testing for the quality purposes, and we are able to link ourselves to the global market. Dr. Rendra had mentioned about fruit fly in mango, which has been affecting us greatly in terms of our export to especially countries like Japan and USA. We are having also at this stage competition from several countries abroad. You see that a lot of fruits and vegetables even are coming from abroad, and we have to compete with the quality side. We have to also ensure that we not only compete for quality side, but take advantage of now new science and the advancements that are there through biological means, through also regenerative artificial intelligence, and by going in for the techniques which can increase the shelf life of our fruit crops, and we look at the niche in terms of where we can export them. We have to also make sure in the process that farmer is
I
help.
thought he's from America. Later on, I saw like his accent is like Indian. Right? Later on, I saw his name.
I think someone is in between.
Mr. Gawai, please mute yourself. Please mute yourself, Mr. Gawai.
If the participants can mute,
Nava,
it will be better. So we have to make sure that we are able to take advantage of all opportunities relating to innovations for improving the quality
बाहर रखते हैं, क्योंकि यहाँ पे
also
चूहा आता है।
the storability.
अबे डाल दो, उसी में डाल दो।
We need to improve the facilities with regard to cold storage. We have to also ensure that there is proper strategy for export of fruit crops. For that, we have APTITUDE. Lot of initiatives are there, but I see sky is the limit as far as horticultural crops are concerned. For this, NIFTM is very rightly placed institution, can provide not only the support for capacity development, but also help the entrepreneurs by hand-holding, institutional backstopping, and also linking them to the market. The government initiatives on a startup is also quite remarkable, and we see that in that process now the initiatives on farmer producer organizations can be of great help. Support is being provided for creating cold storage facilities. We are aware that if we use right varieties and right technologies, we can not only increase production, but also we can have greater shelf life of these commodities. In this, what is required is access to good knowledge, and knowledge without dissemination loss to be made available to the end users, whether those are farmers or entrepreneurs, or for that matter, the extension agents. We have to strengthen our extension system, and for that I see great opportunity for our youth in India. We have almost 400 million youth in India, more than even China, and that is our strength. And almost half of them women, as we see the participants in this particular meeting are also around 46%. And the youth requires now new technologies, like even protected cultivation. Compared to China, we also started with the protected cultivation about 2.5 decades ago under NATP, mention of which was made by Dr. Sunil. But till now, 25 years, our area covered under protected cultivation is just around 55 or 60,000 hectares compared to 2 million hectare area in China. And for youth, when they are capable of growing fruits and vegetables, they can increase their capability and income and production manifold. And also we have to make sure that we try to make use of safe approaches for food crops.
పోయి స్నానం చేసి వచ్చి చదివే పెట్టాడు
Even using the solar energy to a greater extent, and to make sure that the quality is good. We know that today we are producing large quantity of oranges. But when you look at the processing side of oranges, these oranges are not so good compared to what varieties we have abroad with regard to their processing and for juice making. And for juice making also, we have to adopt new technologies by which they can be preserved for a longer period and exported. So I see that time is quite limited. Much more can be said. I understand the session was to be closed by 6:30. Uh, I see that in the program uh, for 6 days you have lined up very good speakers even from abroad, and we have to learn from countries like New Zealand, countries like even Brazil. If Brazil is number one in fruit production, India is number two today. China is number one in vegetables, and India is number two in vegetables. If Brazil but doesn't have the capacity for consuming all that they produce, and if they cannot export, then I think their entire economy will be affected adversely. Same is the case for New Zealand or even for Australia. So we have to now reorient our research programs, our technologies. We have to encourage the youth and see that we explore opportunities for export of our commodities, make sure that quality is not compromised, make sure that we have also the facilities for quarantine, also ensure that concern for pesticide residue is taken care of, and we use those approaches like integrated pest management, biopesticides, so that we are much safer. We have to also increase the shelf life, whether through radiation or through other specific treatments. Uh, we are also large apple producer, but now we see that there is great competition of apple coming from outside into India. So we have to make sure that our apple is improved in quality, the production is increased, productivity is increased through density planting by having new types of materials. Like I talked about orange. Now today we are number one in banana in the world for banana production, and we are also exporting. So there are, and in case of grape, we were not at all on the global map for export of grape and even the wine. But today we are exporting wine, and our wines are competing with best of the wines in the world. So if we have real committed youth, well trained, and link them to the global market and also within India to see that if they can, through farmers producer organizations, if we train them as technology agents, as entrepreneurs, as extension agents, as input providers, then they can help a great deal, even farmers, to earn more. Because in case of horticultural crops, often they encounter uh, distress sale in the market, and if that is not properly managed and planned. So I do see that we need to take full advantage of the technologies that are there. We have to not only have post-harvest management, but have to add value. So with the value, we can earn much more. And I see sky is the limit. In case of other commodities, India seems to have been doing well for export, whether it is, say, fish, whether it is the crops. We are today almost export about 55 billion US dollars. And to contribute from agriculture to 5 million, 5 trillion economy, India must contribute from agriculture at least 1 trillion. And for that, we have to increase our contribution to national GDP from current about 16% to that of 20%. And I do see great opportunities. And you require for that, for any of these successes and meeting these challenges, what we need is institutions like NIFTEM, human resource, so that human resource is capable and can be best and compete with the rest of the world. Even if we have to train them abroad, we must do that. And COVID has taught us a good lesson that we can have even the expertise from abroad virtually at a very short notice. As we have seen, this course is planned only in 6 days and is being planned virtually, and everybody is linked and are able to gain. So we have now new options through ICT. Use of the ICT has to be, or what we call as digital agriculture, will be very important. We have to go in for technologies by which we can improve the efficiency in terms of production. Nanotechnology, I see, is one of the subject being covered in your training program. Also, the processing of the food and value addition of the food. And what is required is that we have to have capability of the youth built, and they have to see as to what is the niche for them, where they are located, and what is the market there. And once they have studied market and also whether the production of those commodities in that area, then technologies can help a great deal, and government schemes are there which could be also taken benefit of. And I do see very bright future in this area, but certainly we would require more capable human resource to take or to embrace horticulture and take full advantage of it. I remember when I was young, to buy fruit in the town, there were very few shops where you had to go, or those shops were mainly in front of the city hospitals. And now, right in the villages, you find the produce. Whether the coconut is produced in south, the same, almost same price it is available in the north. Whether apple is produced in north, the same price it is available in the south. So things really have made a great difference over the last 5 to 6 decades. And now is the time when we have to think of the quality of this produce. We have to think of not only consuming ourselves, we have enough which we have produced for ourselves. There the issue is of buying power to be improved, but then we also have an option of exporting them and competing globally. And in that respect, you would require technologies, and there are innovations. We must understand which innovation is going to help us for the kind of effort that we have to make. And because we had been earlier in the past exporting mostly the raw material. But now is the time when you have to think of value-added products to be exported. And that would require better infrastructure, better policy support by the government, and also the institutions and human resource. Our farmers are very intelligent. They want to diversify, provided they are given proper knowledge and understanding as to if they change, then what difference it will make. Even farmers from Rajasthan, from where I and Sunil come, the Rajasthan state is a maximum producer of seed spices. And seed spices have great potential for export. But then again, it is by saying will not happen unless we have the concentrated effort made and policies there, and then reorientation of our agriculture to diversify cropping system, to go for low volume, high value crops, which are often the fruit and vegetables are, and they can provide us more income. So with this, I would like to thank you, Dr. Harendra Oberoi and Dr. Sunil. And I'm very, very pleased to be a part of this particular initiative. And I congratulate you for having organized it. And I would like to also thank you for your very generous introduction of mine. I do not know whether really I deserve all that, but I do appreciate for inviting me to be with you this evening.
Thank you so much, sir, for your word of wisdom and sparing the time. Just for our IT team, please see 172 participants are in the waiting, 407 in the meeting and not in the meeting 172. So please see the IT team. And now I request to Dr. Prasanna ji for the formal vote of thanks, as our next speaker has already been joined from the Italy.
It's my turn, Dr. Parekh.
Just wait, Maria. Prasanna ji, unmute करिए.
Okay, I'm here.
अच्छा, कोई
I was
कोई
not
बात.
sure was my turn.
So I thanks to our chief guest, Professor Paroda ji, for sparing your time, and also welcome to our speaker, Professor Maria Luiso Amadio. So just I introduce her with the participants. That Dr. Maria Luisa Amadio is a full professor of the equipments for food processing at the Department of Agriculture, Food, Natural Resources and Engineering of the University of Foggia, Italy. She is currently chairperson of Postharvest Working Group of International Society for Horticultural Sciences. After a certificate program in post-harvest technology at the University of California, Davis, she completed her studies with a PhD in sustainable agriculture at University of Foggia. Her research activities focus on technologies for increasing shelf life of fresh cut fruit and vegetables, and more recently on the application of non-destructive optical techniques to predict quality and shelf life of horticultural produce. She is presently coordinator of the doctoral program on biotechnology and smart practices for a sustainable management of natural resources, food and agriculture of Department Daphne at the University of Fauja. In the last years, she was principal investigator and worked on package coordinator in the national and international R&D projects, mostly aimed to add value to fresh cut products. She has been member of scientific and organizing committees for several short courses and international conferences. She is author of more than 150 publications, including articles in peer-reviewed journals and book chapters. She is going to deliver her presentation on the non-destructive quality evaluation and authentication of fruit and vegetable. So welcome, Maria. And now you can start your presentation. You can take it in the full presentation mode and start.
Yes. Okay, you can see now full presentation. Can you see it?
Not the full presentation.
No? Mm.
No, it's not in the slide mode.
Allora, let's see how to do it. Let's try this. Maybe now? Can you see the full presentation now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
can you hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I thank Dr. Parek for inviting me to give this lecture and for the introduction. My topics will be on non-destructive quality evaluation and authentication of fruit and vegetable. As Dr. Parek already said, I came from University of Foggia, which is in Italy, in the southeast part of Italy, in the Puglia region. You can follow us on Facebook, Postharvest. We have a Facebook page on, and we call our group Postharvest UNIFG. So we are a research unit in Postharvest technology at the University of Foggia in Italy. We work mainly on extending quality on fresh wool and fresh cut produce. And when we speak about quality evaluation, we do conventional quality evaluation, but in the last decades, we also increased our activities and our knowledge in non-destructive quality evaluation, mainly hyperspectral imaging. We have been involved in several research activities with national, international partners, and we are collaborating a lot with the company, with industries aimed to develop new technologies. Among the last project, we just concluded a national project on storability, quality and safety of fruit and vegetable product with high added value. We are involved in circularity food cost action of the European Union, which is focused on sustainable packaging, and we have been involved in the past in several national and European projects. If you take a look to our publication, you will see which are the main topic, and that hyperspectral and imaging are very recurrent words after quality and fresh cut. So you can have an idea of our publication. Among the event and the conference organization, we just concluded in June the 5th International Conference on Fresh Cut Produce, where Dr. Parek was also invited to give an oral presentation. And in the last years, we have been organizing a lot of conferences, controlled atmosphere, fresh cut processing, modeling, and so on. So now I will introduce my outline. I will describe briefly the quality assessment and the advantages of non-destructive quality evaluation, which are the main system, and what we can measure with this system, mainly color, morphological index, internal composition, internal features, and then a little bit on data analysis and commercial application and other research study we have been doing. Why we do? Well, you all know that we need to assess quality of fruits and vegetable for assessing the optimal harvest time, but also the optimal market time, to sort product, to discard the defective product, but also to sort produce for commercial standard or for given destination. For instance, which kind of processing we want to apply to that product based on its characteristic. So if it's suitable to be processed or not. To assess also nutritional content or predict the storability of the product. And moreover, in the last years, in the last decades, there is a lot of interest in defending the authenticity of the production in terms of origin, cultivar, or growing system. So we can use non-destructive quality evaluation to assess all the quality parameters we generally assess with conventional systems, so external and internal color, firmness, soluble solidity, acidity, phytonutrients, and other constituents. The advantages of doing this with a non-destructive way are mainly due to the fact that these methods are fast, easy to use, cheap, and flexible. They don't need sample preparation. You don't need specialists, well-trained people. To make the analysis, you don't need a particular and expensive instruments. You can find some cheap instruments to do this, but the main thing is that you don't need to prepare your sample, you don't need to make chemical extraction, so you don't have solvent waste, and you don't have cost due to this analysis. And with the same reading, you can have online measurements on many parameters, not just one. With the same reading, you can measure as many quality parameters as many you have in your prediction model. And due to the fact that you can do this in non-destructive way, if needed, you can measure one by one your product, your fruits. You don't have to take just a representative samples. You can scan all the product. So you can make quality control. Among this technique, today I will speak about electromagnetic technique, particularly near or hyperspectral imaging, but there are other non-destructive techniques which are, for instance, used for the aroma, like the electronic nose, or for texture, like electromechanics and mechanics technique. So electromagnetic system study the interaction of the electromagnetic source, mainly visible source or infrared source, with an object. As you know, the electromagnetic spectra is composed of several kind of wavelengths, changing in dimension and increasing from gamma ray, X-ray to the microwave and the radio waves. Increasing the length of the band will reduce the energy of the band. That means that smallest wavelengths can penetrate much more into our sample. For instance, that's why X-ray can be used to scan bones, while visible infrared can penetrate just the first millimeters of our product. Nonetheless, even if they are entering few millimeters of your fruit, of your product, they give a lot of information of the internal quality, not only composition, but internal quality of the fruits. And this is because the light, when interact with your sample, is partially absorbed. Part of the light is transmitted, and this is depending on the transparency of your sample. If it's a fluid, juice, or liquid, the light might be transmitted much more than in solid fluid, unless, for instance, we are speaking about white grapes or some sample which are transparent. Most of the light, then the part of the incident light which is not absorbed is reflected. So we can measure reflected light or transmitted light depending on our system and having information about the internal composition, since this reflected light is the result of the interaction of the cell of the fruit with the electromagnetic light. Now, just introducing some of the technique we used, and I divided this in imaging and non-imaging techniques, because we can have information which are not related to an image, but still they can give information about internal composition of a product. And I'm speaking about just a simple spectrophotometer, which are non-imaging technique. The simplest non-imaging techniques is a colorimeter, but of course the colorimeter can only give us information about color. Color can be also measured with other kind of device like digital camera, or with the device which have spectral information in the visible part. With the digital camera, we can measure morphology, so meaning size, dimension, and shape of a product. Thermal imaging can be, of course, used to determine internal temperature of the fluid, which is sometimes related to some physiological problem or any damage, but it's very difficult to be applied in the real life because of the effects of interaction with external condition, ambient condition. When we have spectral information, of course, we can have information about internal composition. So we can directly relate the information to the internal composition of the sample. Why? There are techniques like NMR, X-ray, but also spectral information can give also information about internal features. And when I say internal feature, I mean internal characteristics which are related to the structure of the tissue, like a presence of defects, like firmness, like physiological damage, which cannot be seen externally, but which are affecting the internal structure of the product. So I prefer to give you an overview of this system, just introducing the characteristic they can help to measure. For instance, we already said the colorimeter are used to measure color. I will skip this information. The digital imaging can be used. Can be used to measure not only color, but also morphological characteristics, or for instance, the presence of defects, being able to measure every attributes which can be seen by the human eye. So if we can see something by our eyes, that means that we can be able to isolate this parameter with a digital imaging system, which is composed of a computer, a camera, of course, and a light source. The advantages of this technique, for instance, if we use these techniques to measure color, compared to the colorimeter, is that we can have the color of the whole object and not only of some points, because colorimeter are used to make measure point by point, so you can take not more than 3 to 5 points per sample, and you have to average this measure. And so when the color is not uniform, colorimeter is not very appropriate. With digital imaging, we can have information about the whole product and we can make some additional operation like thresholding. So in this example, I'm showing you the possibility of thresholding the image to measure the percentage of browning, for instance, for these leaves of basil, or we also did for artichokes quarter, subjected to different anti-browning treatment to estimate the goodness of the treatment to prevent browning. And with colorimeter, this could not be really effectively done because of the morphology of the product, which make little difficult to measure color just by colorimeter. In addition, when color is not uniform, when, for instance, in these borlotto beans, or for instance, let's think to peaches or other crops where the red color or where there is a shade of or which can randomly occur, digital imaging is necessary to isolate the part of the product that you gives information, for instance, in this case, about yellowing of the seeds during the storage. Or if we think to a peach, you can isolate information related, for instance, to the yellow background, which is the one more related to ripening, while the red shadows are just a variety random characteristics. So as I said, I think there is one slide missing here, but as I said, you can also use this technique to measure morphological index, so shape and size. Okay, here we are. Like in this study, where different cultivar, walnuts, pecans, and pistachio were discriminated thanks to the morphological index measured with the digital system. Internal composition. For internal composition, then we need a spectrophotometer. A spectrophotometer which can be used, as I said before, in transmittance, reflectance, or transflectance, and I will explain later about this, but which give us information about the internal characteristic, internal composition of the product. So depending of when the kind of detector and the position of the detector compared to the sample to the incident light, we can measure reflectance, transmittance, or interactance, which is a kind of summation of reflectance and transmittance. Since the transmitted light is sent back thanks to a reflective panel like gold. So reflecting back also the transmitted light, you can measure both transmitted and reflectance together. Business near spectroscopy and near spectroscopy. I already said that give information about the internal composition, because the interaction of the light is and the part of the light which is absorbed by the product is depending from the structure of the sample, the moisture content, mainly, which is the majority constituent of the fruits, the particle size, the temperature, and most important, the chemical composition. So depending on the chemical composition, we will have a different vibration of boundary, particularly CH, NH, OH, which are the boundaries occurring in all the main constituent. And these compounds will have a characteristic wavelength where they will vibrates as reported in this table. So there are some wavelengths which are characteristic of some boundaries, for instance, characteristic of water in carbohydrates, characteristic of lipids, but it's not so easy and direct to go from this measure of reflectance at a given wavelength To the direct composition, for instance, I'm seeing here 1780 is characteristic of CH of lipids, but it's not a strict measure of lipids, because at that wavelength we will also have other vibration, which are not characteristics, but still we get an overlapping signal which need to be studied and decomposed. So I will speak later about how we analyze this signal, but that's to be that this signal is a little bit complicated. This technology have been applied since the 1960s mainly for grain moisture content, and later they have been introduced. There are some application on fruits, particularly most of them are measuring dry matter, soluble solids, and then acidity of the fruits, and later on internal composition. So moving from just the total soluble solids or the total acids to the single organic acid and single sugars. As for instance, in this example on mandarin, where we see the prediction of soluble solid, pH, and firmness, and we have this these results in terms of performance of the model in calibration, cross-validation, better if we have also external prediction, where we report the R-square or the standard error calibration, the standard error prediction. The higher the R-square and the lower the error, the better is the model. Other example on sweetness of intact mangoes, or as in this example we did on artichokes. This is a piece of artichokes, fresh cut artichokes. We measured phenolics and antioxidant activity, and we get an interesting result with a R-square of about 0.8, which is not the highest possible, but considering that these phytonutrients are present in as the word phyto indicates, in very small quantities, is very nice to be able to detect with a good accuracy, with a sufficient accuracy, the content of these phytonutrients without any sample preparation, so just by a reading. So this is still a good measure. If we move from near to hyperspectral imaging, we add more information. Particularly, the hyperspectral imaging is combining the advantage of the spectra analysis with the imaging analysis. So it gives spatial and spectral information at the same time. We can have also in this case detector that can measure reflectance, absorbance, or transmittance, and they do the acquisition by point, by line, or by area. Generally, line scan is the most suitable and the most easily to be used online, because it can be used on a conveyor belt. As I said, with this system, we get spectral and spatial information. So spatial, like a digital image, we have the X, and the Y and the X axis, giving the information related to the position of the object. And for each pixel, we can have the reading of the wavelength of the reflectance at each wavelength. That means that for each pixel we can build this, we can have the spectral, for instance, like in this image. From this point, we can have the full spectra, or we can analyze for each wavelength one image. And this is useful when, for instance, one wavelength gives information about something that cannot be seen by human eyes. And this is the advantages of a hyperspectral compared to the visible, that we can see things which are not visible by our eyes. And therefore, we can work on average spectra, we can work on the image, we can combine the information of the spectra with the information of the image, for instance, by detecting something within our fluids. When you take the average spectra, you can build model like we did for NIR. So you can have model for soluble solids, pH, without using the image. So the first step, you take your mean spectra from your object, from your fluids, from the region of interest in your image. You take the mean spectra, you build a model like you do with the spectra acquired in NIR, and you predict, for instance, the soluble solid and the pH, like in this study on strawberries. This is the prediction of sugar, phenolics, antioxidant activity we did in the fennel heads based on harvest time. So in this case, we see some pretreatment. So the best model, for instance, for bricks is the one applied mean centering with an area square of 0.81 in calibration and 0.77 in prediction. And so on. So in yellow is highlighted the best model as results of the comparison of different preprocessing technique. The addition, the further step we can do in hyperspectral imaging compared to NIR is that once we have the model, we can map the constituent within the fruit, within the crops. That means using the spatial information, not only prediction of sugars, but we can have a concentration map of this constituent within our samples. As you see here is a slice of the fennels when yellow indicates the highest concentration, which is in the inner part compared to the outer. And you can see also a kinematic vessel carrying out sugar to the leaves. Other example, in these melons, you can see the harvest maturity going from unripe to ripe to full ripe. And also in this case, this is the results of a concentration map of sugars. Other studies of our group, in the past we did several work on rocket leaves. This is a prediction model applied to rocket leaves for vitamin C, antioxidant activity, and phenolics. So as you can see, the research is going further, starting from just soluble solids or the acidity to phytonutrients. So this is the main innovation to discover the potential of this technique to predict vitamins and phenolics and phytonutrients. So with vitamin C, we got a model with a square of 0.8, about 0.8, so still very good. And the same goodness also for antioxidant activity and phenolics. Here is a recent published work on prediction of quality, nutritional quality of goji berries. Also in this case, sugars and vitamins and phenolics. Here you can see the average content of soluble solids and phenolics of the goji berries. Sorry. So going from unripe to ripe fruit. And now let's move to internal features. So with hyperspectral or with spectral information, we can also measure some properties which are related to the internal structure of the fruits. When I say fruit, I mean crop, but generally most of the application are on fruits. So we can use this technique to detect main defects sometimes visible, sometimes internal defects, and nice application are the one that can predict the effects before it became visible. Detection of defects and contaminant for different apple varieties. These are some examples I took from literature. While here you can see goji berries again, classified based on severity of defects. So we had 3 classes of defect and 1 class for sound fruit, and you can see the results of the classification of different the different class of defect, which gives accuracy of 25%, but this accuracy increased to 93% when only 2 classes were used. So no matter, since we do not care too much about which kind of defect is present, but we want to discard defective fruit from sound fruit, we can do this in a very efficient way, having an accuracy of more than 93%. And you can see here the difference of the spectra of the damage and sound fruits. Of course, you have to pre-process your data. These are some applications we are also now doing in the field to detect where to cut the table grapes with the machine, and also we want to detect botrytis or infected berries, infected bunches of grapes, and this is an ongoing project. Now that I gave you an overview of the techniques, I want to give you some hint about data analysis. So, for when we speak about quality control, we can think about quantitative analysis, meaning predicting something which is in our crops. So predicting internal content of individual sugars, of vitamin C, all the sample we have been seeing now. What we need in this case is to have reference data, so the spectra, so meaning that we have to take the spectra and then destroy our sample to take the reference data, and as output we can have the model used to predict this constituent in the product. So quantitative analysis when we have when we do prediction model or some constituent. It's a constituent, but it can be also a firmness. Everything can be measured in a continuous way, like firmness, for instance, or color. Qualitative analysis is an analysis made to differentiate some sample, for instance, for origin, for cultivar, for quality, for ripeness stage, even for firmness or color, when firmness is not measured in a continuous way, but is measured when we have 3 classes, for instance, of firmness, less firm, firm, and firmer, or let's say better, unripe, ripe, overripe. So if we have classes, we do qualitative analysis. To do this, we just need to know the class of belonging and to build the model. So for quantitative analysis, as I did, we take the spectra, we do the destructive analysis, we process the model, and we have a calibration model, which generally is tested with the cross-validation. And then we apply the model to unknown samples, unknown fruits, and we can see we can predict the internal values. If we are interested in the error, at this point we also measure the content in destructive way in order to see the bias of our value compared to the real value. And this is what we do in research, but if you are a company, you just use the prediction model. Just simplifying a lot, I want to to highlight that if you have a single signal, for instance, in lab, you have a single measurement of, you do an extraction of phenolics, you measure the absorbance, I don't know, 550 nanometer. You relate this measure of absorbance to the internal constituent, so you do a calibration curve. In this case, we have n signals, so many wavelengths, up to 100, 200 of variables, which need to be related to the constituent you are measuring. So generally what we use are multivariate methods for estimated, for building this model, where the most of them are based on PLS model, so based on the partialist square method. For qualitative analysis, generally we can distinguish between classification. Let's think you have 3 different origin, 3 different sample of different origin. You take the spectra of this sample and you cluster the sample in 3 classes. So every time you have a new sample, you have to measure your spectra and to see the similarity of this spectra compared to the 3 classes and to assign the new classes. Or otherwise, you can do modeling. Modeling means is the fruit belonging to origin 1? Yes or not? We don't care if it's from origin 2 or 3. What we care is to model, to recognize our sample in contrast to all the different samples we can have. So this is for instance, for conformity test or for authentication of our product, for instance, our varieties, our growing system, our label. And we want to, we don't care which kind of product people are trying to sell with our brand. We just want to be able to discriminate this sample. So in this case, you want to use modeling instead of classification. Both of these are qualitative analysis. As already introduced, we use R-square, so the explained variance, the standard errors of calibration prediction for assessing the goodness of our model. And so we need higher square and low calibration error. If we do classification, still we want a high R-square and lower error in classification. About data analysis, I also made the distinction in imaging and non-imaging techniques, so just near and hyperspectral imaging. In both cases, we need pre-processing. In case of the image, we need to threshold to segmentate our image to take out the region of interest. From that region, we extract the mean spectra. With the mean spectra, we do the same analysis we also need for the non-imaging spectra. So spectral analysis, we do pre-processing and data modeling. So there are some additional parts you need to take care when dealing with hyperspectral imaging. This is a sample of pre-processing of the spectrum. So thanks to the pre-processing, you are able to differentiate more between for instance, samples background. And so you use this to threshold your image, for instance, or to avoid some noise, the scattering, or this problem related to scattering with the pre-processing. Then in imaging, you need to threshold your class compared to other class. You can do this based, for instance, on principal component analysis. So you take some principal component information to discriminate your fruit. In this case, is a grape berry from the background. Once you have the mean spectra, you mean your model, and then in the hyperspectral, you can use this model to map your the concentration of your constituent in your product. So far, there are commercial applications of both for fields, for storage, but they are very customized. That means that you need to know, they are very customized for the kind of fruits and the kind of analysis. So you need to know which use you have to do. And for instance, this instrument is used for apple, blackberry, citrus, grapes, mango, pear, and persimmon, and can measure soluble solid, dry matter, titrable acidity, internal color, and external color. These other instruments is used, so that means that there are models already on it. So it has been calibrated for apple, pear, peach, mandarin, oranges, and also in this case you do sugar, acidity, firmness, color, dry matter, size. There are some applications for grapes, for cellar application measuring, for instance, alcohol, also citric acid, etc. Organic acid, I mean. There are some instruments more used for laboratory, some portable instruments. There are already different applications. Like for hyperspectral imaging is used for optical selection of quality of fruits, as in this case for apple and kiwi fruits. And particularly we can detect, for instance, internal defects. Also, in this case, what you do is a qualitative model, taking the spectra of the whole fruit and the spectra of the damaged part of the fruits, and you can do discrimination. And so it's already implemented for online sorting of defective fruits. Also, in this case, should be customized. Now, the last part of my presentation, I hope I still have some time. Is dedicated to our research study on product authentication. Just a moment. The first example is the potential omni spectroscopy for predicting internal quality and discriminating among strawberry fruit from different production systems. In this case, we were able to discriminate two different organic approach with one conventional approach. And with a very high specificity and sensitivity, we could discriminate not only organic approach from conventional, but within organic, we had two different of ecological approach in terms of incorporation of nitrogen, organic matter in the soil. So we could discriminate these two different growing system, the agroecological with introduction of organic manure in the soil, respect to the simplified or conventionalized organic system where there was just application of allowed fertilizers allowed by the regulation. So a very high specificity in discriminating this growing system. In this example, use of hyperspectral imaging for the discrimination of artichokes by cultivar and harvest time. We could discriminate by violetto cultivar by Catanese, two ecotypes of artichokes. One of these now got an IGP label. So with 100% of accuracy in case of the variety, in case of harvest date, we got a 92% non-error rate in calibration, 86 in prediction. Also in this case, we classify harvest time, but this case was for fairness. Sorry. For fairness with 89. Sorry, but I'm a little cold with the flu. So we got 89% accuracy for harvest time in final heads. Here, another project aimed to discriminate different irrigation, conventional, so meaning farmer-based, so just irrigating at a scheduled time, or sensor-based irrigation with combined with fertilization with low and high input. And we could discriminate very well. And we did this for rocket leaves and for tomatoes. This was in this case, we also could analyze the spectra with the NANOVA approach, aiming to see the significant effect of the factors, in this case irrigation and fertilization, on the spectra. Both of them, no, fertilization and the interaction was significant. So you could decompose the effect of the treatment and the interaction of the treatments in the spectra. A sample of shelf life prediction. This is application of quinoa sprouts, where the use of conventional technique for estimation of quality and shelf life is more complicated due to the morphology of the product. We we use hyperspectral imaging to see, for instance, in this example, the effect of oxygen and storage time, and also in this case, finding a significant effect the storage time on the spectra and the quality of quinoa sprouts. Sensorial assessment was used to also compare the difference found in the spectra with the different reality by sensorial analysis. So it was validated thanks to the sensorial analysis. Here, a shelf life testing on rocket leaves, where we tested the effect of 3 different temperatures, and we used the spectra to monitor the shelf life, so the change in quality over time. And thanks to the elaboration of principal component on the spectra, we could determine the shelf life in days, in terms of days, to reach the marketability limit. Again, always on rocket leaves, we used first conventional parameter like microbial, dry matter, pH, sugar to predict the shelf life of the sample. And then we use spectral information, which gave better results in the prediction of the storability, so shelf life in terms of storability of the sample, based just on the initial information of the spectra acquired at the time 0. So that indicates the potentiality of this technique to sort the product for a given destination, in this case, the fresh cut processing. Classification, again, of fresh cut artichokes, in this case by days of storage, so 0, 2, 5, and 7 days of storage, giving less than 80% non-error rate, but this was increased when we reduced the number of class from 0 to higher than 5. This performance were improved. One interesting application is the early detection of chilling injuries. We have been studying this application in green peppers and other crops. This is green peppers stored at 4 and 12 degrees. And here the discrimination of fresh bell pepper and bell pepper stored at 4 and 12 degrees. Also, we could not only discriminate fruits stored at different temperature, but we could predict the day of storage at low temperature. So this can allow a better management of the cold chain, of the storage chain. Other application on early prediction of chilling injury on eggplants. Also in this case, we saw the effect of time. Guess 2 and 18 degree, 2 and 12 degree. Here in red is the part of the spectra which is significantly affected by the temperature in the upper part and the time of storage in the lower part. So we could see the temperature and time were affecting the spectra and which part of the spectra was significantly changing based on these factors. So going to the conclusion, non-destructive quality evaluation are becoming more and more relevant. Only some of the available technology were presented here, and particularly I focus on our research activity, which indicates that there is the possibility to not only detect many quality attributes and internal constituent, but also to explore from one side different crop, different species, so we can add model or minor crop or less studied crop, but also we can increase the number of attributes and constituent which we want to determine. So we found out that we could predict vitamin C and phenolics, but we can look for other constituents like glucosinolates, like carotenoids, and other things. And moreover, we proved the potentiality of this method for the discrimination purpose, which can be used for product authentication. And so we proved that we can have more information about the history of the product thanks to this technique. So I thank you for your attention, and questions are welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maria. Now, if anyone having any doubt or the question or any query, they may put it into the chat or they may raise their hand so that I invite them one by one.
I see one hand. Sorry for my cough. I see one hand.
So in your lab, have you made some of the equipments for the non-destructive analysis? Like the DA meter is very famous nowadays in our country, which is the patented product from the University of Bologna. So from your lab, you have developed some equipment like that?
Yeah. We already, since maybe the previous instrument, the previous hyperspectral imaging system, I think we got 15 years ago, but now we just bought a new one, which is more suitable also to be moved in the field. So we just bought a new one, and we will test it soon. And it's an hyperspectral system with 2 detectors, one in the vis near and one in the near range up to 2,500 nanometers. So we can cover from 400 to 2,500 nanometers.
So it is commercialized now?
Sorry?
Is it commercialized now?
See, but these are commercialized, but are more for research application, because you don't get already the software for more. You get a software to analyze the spectra, but it's not already scheduled to give you what sugars or whatever you need to use for research purpose. So we generally extract the spectra and analyze the spectra in an external sources like Python or MATLAB or other processing tool. But this is our commercial device, and the company customized the application. So they are selling this also with some software customized for the use. I see there is a residence, Sanil. Maybe you can go ahead, JC.
So anyone, any doubt or the question you can clear?
Tariq sir,
Yes,
वो actually chat
Yeah.
box unblock
I
कीजिए
have a
please.
query. Am I audible, ma'am?
Sì, sì.
Yeah. Ma'am, in one of your research paper, I've noted that you have measured the specificity. Can you please elaborate which instrument you have used for measuring that particular parameter?
Specificity?
Yes, ma'am.
But in this case, specificity is related to the classification performance. Is related to, it's not a physical parameter, but it's specificity and what is this? Sorry, but okay. So when we speak about sensibility and specificity, we mean the ability of sensibility to detect true positive and specificity also to the ability of detecting true negative. So this is related to the classification performance. If I was clear. So it's something related to the classification method. For each class, you have sensitivity and specificity, which means that sensibility, 100% of the true positive are effective in this class. But if you don't have 100% of specificity, but you have, for instance, 90, 98, that means that you have some sample of other class in your class. So you are able to detect as true positive all the 100% of the sample, but still in that class you detect few sample which are belonging to other classes. So specificity in this case is lower than 100%, because in that class you also detect some sample of other class. You wrongly classify this in your classes.
Okay, so there is another question. Is there any possibility to detect internal bruise in apples using ultrasonic waves?
So the internal bruising?
Yeah, internal bruising in apples. Is there any possibility to detect by ultrasonic waves?
Yes. Yes, of course. The spectra of bruised tissue are very different from spectra of sound tissue. So you can calibrate your model just sampling different kind of damages and bruises, and you can detect you can discriminate sounds and damaged tissue. This can be done on any kind of fluids. Generally, it's not so difficult to have good results on this, because spectra are changing a lot when you have a bruise internally. You're welcome. Madam, there is another one. Madam wanted to know your insight about pre-cut or pre-management, marinated mushroom as compared to fresh cut fruit or vegetable. I mean, this is a little bit out of question, but if you want, I can reply. I mean, fresh cut preparation the main advantage of fresh cut preparation is that organoleptic and nutritional quality is unchanged compared to the whole product. So we prefer to go into fresh cut instead of marinated or other hard preparation, because they will affect much more the organoleptic properties or sometimes the nutritional properties. And so you don't have anymore a product which is similar to the raw, to the fresh product. So you are speaking about a completely different product if you speak about a marinated mushroom. So if, for instance, your objective is to have fresh cut, is to have a minimally processed mushroom to be used for some recipe, they will be not the same if you use marinated or heavy processed mushroom. That's why we prefer not to affect the taste of the product. I'm reading just Sanit. Can hyperspectral be used for assessing the quality of processed and packed food? Yes, of course. I spoke here about application for fruit and vegetable, but they can be used for assessment of quality of processed food, for not only quality, but also for, how do you say, for conformity of the product compared to a standard in order to check if the processing has been correctly performed. So as a control of the process, it's a process, you can do process control, you can control the process variable, or you can control the process through the product, because if the spectra of the product is not the expected one, that means that something went wrong in your process. So yes, they are used for online food quality inspection and process control step. Do you analyze hyperspectral images? I try to just a little bit speak about this. I mean, it's more complicated, but I try to just give you an idea. Like you do in a digital imaging, you need to threshold your image. So that means you need to segmentate your crop from the background. And then you can do some pre-processing to eliminate noise, scattering, and interference. Then you take from the image the mean spectra, and then you can deal with the spectra to build your models, your predicted model. So, for instance, here you can see two different spectra, two groups of spectra. One is the object and one is the background. And you can use this difference to threshold your image. So take just the pixel related to your object. And from this pixel, you extract your mean spectra, which you use to predict your model. Then applying the model on the image of the fruits, pixel by pixel, it can detect the content of your constituent within the fruit, and so you can have a concentration map with different color indicating different level, different concentration level. How can be cheaper than the extracting method? I mean, for the extracting method, I mean, if you are speaking about soluble solids, you don't need much. You don't need really. It's not a very expensive analysis. But if we are speaking about vitamin C, phenolics, etc., then you need HPLC instruments, which are very expensive. You need chemicals. You need a trained person which run the analysis. You need to pay for the discarded waste. So these are very expensive. So if we compare the cost of the analysis of the chemical analysis of vitamin C and the prediction cost, consider that you have to make an investment. It depends if it's a spectral or depend on the instruments. A NIR is not very expensive, and a spectral is more expensive, but still you can compare the cost to the HPLC, and once you buy, you don't have to spend for chemical, for reagent, for it's not time consuming. So it's just the cost of the investment. And now the cost of the investment is becoming more affordable. So there are some small systems which are not very expensive. That's why it's cheaper. And at the same time, you analyze a lot of parameters. So if you are able to build model for organic acid, sugar, phenolics, vitamin C, you can, with the same reading, measure all these parameters with one reading. So compared to the single analysis, much more economic, cheaper. Other questions? The K limitation of hyperspectral. Well, the limitations are due to the variability of the raw material. So to build the model, you have to add as much as variability as you can. So sometimes if you just build a model with one variety, so one harvest time, is not really applicable to all the population. So you have to train your model a lot. You have to put into your calibration as many sources as you can in terms of variability. For instance, different harvest time or different origin, in order to. So I think it's the model. The limitation is that the model can be very specific for your sample and not really applicable to other kind of sample unless you don't build big models with big variation in the dataset. So the accuracy of discrimination of the growing system in that particular year, in that particular study, let's think to the strawberries, was very high, but it's not easy transferable to other fields or other varieties, other growers. It's very specific of that system. I don't know if I was clear. I don't know, Sanil, if you can help me, if there are other questions. I try to read something.
Yeah, I think there is no more questions now. Professor Tiwari has already joined, so we can start the next session also.
The next, okay.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Maria, for your insightful lecture on a very short notice. And our participants are very well acquainted with all these technologies. And I will share your email ID with them so that if any question, they can interact with you individually.
Okay.
Or otherwise, they may send the questions to me also, so I will connect you. So really,
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now I invite our next speaker, Professor Brijesh Tiwari. So Professor Brijesh Tiwari is a Principal Research Officer at TIGASC and Adjunct Professor at UCD School of Biosystems and Food Engineering. Professor Tiwari has an internationally recognized reputation for food engineering research is evidenced by his highly cited researcher designation continuously since 2018 by Clarivate's Web of Science. He has published over 300 high-impact peer-reviewed journal papers. He leads a team of over 25 researchers, including postdoctoral researchers and PhD students in the area of sustainable food processing and preservation technologies. His editorial responsibilities include editor LWT Food Science and Technology and Food Chemistry. He is also a fellow of IFST UK, RSC UK, AFSTI India, and the UPSC. So with this brief introduction, I invite Professor Brijesh Tiwari to deliver his lecture on a very pertinent and important topic, that is innovative technologies to establish zero waste processes. So welcome, Professor Tiwari. You can just start your video and share your presentation also.
Thank you, Professor. Am I audible?
Yeah, very much.
Perfect. One second, just share the screen. I'm just sharing the screen. Give me one. Can you see the full screen of the presentation? Yeah.
Yeah. It is visible.
Perfect. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. So I'll, without wasting any further time, I'll go straight on to the topic. We're going to cover innovative technologies or approaches to establish zero waste processes. And I come from Chagas, that's Irish Agriculture and Food Development Authority, and we are spread all over the country, and we deal with everything to do with the production, that is either agriculture or animal and grassland research, crop environment, land use, food, rural economy and development. So we have two core food centers. One is based in Dublin, where I am based in, and other one is in Cork, which deals with all the food research as well. So with this, I lead a group, and our core area of expertise is all related to technologies. We deal with non-thermal processes, new extraction technologies, and production and development of new ingredients. And the focus is mainly on the shelf life, food quality, how we can improve nutritional attributes of those ingredients, and add value and waste valorization. So this is brief about our group and where I come from. And this particular presentation will cover the relevance of why do we want to establish zero waste approaches, what are new technologies or approaches we can adopt, some case studies and valorization examples. So as I mentioned, or rather we all know that we are dealing with the current situation of making more processes more sustainable. Within the EU, we have certain action plans and we have set targets. So in response to that, there is a farm to fork strategy, that is European Green Deal, and the main focus is how do we strive to the first climate neutral continent, and Ireland itself to reduce food wastage by 50% by the end of 2030 and to be zero waste by 2050. So these are some of the targets which has been established for different member states within the EU. And in response to this particular 50% reduction by 2030 and complete zero waste by 2050, so we established a number of different guidelines documents which are readily available online. And within that, it's National Food Waste Prevention Roadmap, Food Vision 2030, leading to world leader in sustainable food systems. Chagas being an state agency, we ourselves having our own strategy of document, how we bring in together the research, advisory, and education to create sustainable food systems. And latest one was Bioeconomy Action Plan, which is Government of Ireland's document, and this is currently getting updated for the next 2-year action plan. And the action plan, which is which deals with the farm to fork strategy, is food loss and waste prevention, sustainable food production, sustainable food processing and distribution, and sustainable food consumption. So it's not only valorizing the side streams or waste within the value chain, but also to deal how we address each and every food chain as a particular system. So I'll quickly just read through this particular bioeconomy action plan, which is having a number of different chapters, and the link is provided at the bottom, and it can be found with the simple using any standard search engine. Whether it's a governance of awareness, research and development, nature, climate, energy, circular economy, agriculture, communities, industry, and what are knowledge and skills required. So this shows how serious the the government initiatives are, including our own organization, where we want to achieve zero waste processes and to try to be a climate neutral continent by 2050. So if the way we go into how we establish zero waste processes, first we need to understand what we are talking about. That is, what is basically a food system. So historically, we all know what a food system was. We grow crops, we produce it, harvesting, post-harvest, food processing, we process that food product, distribution, retail, and food consumption. So this was the simple linear system which was from farm to fork. So we were not concerned about the stream waste generated or food lost during the chain, as well as what is food wasted at the end. But in order to establish zero waste food system, we need to take a holistic approach, and then it makes this linear system quite complicated when we divide this whole food system into subsystem. For example, food itself is a biological entity, so we have to consider that biological system. A lot of cash flows and a lot of economics are attached to it, like how much does it cost to process the product, what will be the value, political system, social system, and health system, because food is ultimately used for consumption to maintain our health and well-being. So if we consider the whole linear system into a simple systems, we talk about number of different subsystems. So if we merge everything together, we'll see how complicated our food system becomes. That is, biological system related to biodiversity, land use, climate, pollution, agriculture, land or groundwater, economics, that is related to distribution, companies, farmers, grocery stores, restaurant, that's economic, farming, that is input, what all inputs are going in for the production of food. Then we have political system that is related to all taxes and regulations and legislations, health system, about food safety, security, care, and wellness. So this shows how complicated a food system is. And then when we talk about systems approach, we have to consider all these aspects. And that's what makes food system slightly complicated compared to any other system we think of. So within this particular element, if we consider what is sustainable food system or what is unsustainable system, I know it is quite difficult and quite challenging to define what a sustainable food system is. Rather than we do see, if we drink a tea in a paper cup, we think it's more sustainable compared to drinking a tea in a plastic cup. But that itself is having its own implication to see how we understand sustainability versus unsustainability. I'm not going to go into the definition of sustainability, but in simple language, unsustainable system will have high resource consumption, that is non-renewable sources, whereas in sustainable, we focus on renewable biomass, that is we can produce now again and again. Second one is unsustainable depends more on chemical inputs, like for example, pesticides and chemical use for preservation, processing, or even fertilizers, what are used for production. And here we talk about alternative green chemicals, that is altering all the chemical preservatives, for production, removing chemical fertilizers and pesticides with natural green alternatives. For unsustainable food system, there was no focus on greenhouse gas emissions, whereas sustainable food system will focus on net zero emission. That means no waste. If there is no waste, that means we are reducing the emissions or issues related to land, air, or environmental pollution. Other one is food waste is not considered when we have unsustainable food system, whereas we have to focus on zero waste approach when we talk about sustainable food system. Then we have supply chain, where we have centralized supply chain, whereas we create local and short supply chain where producer becomes a processor. That's one example of short supply chain. And then social inequality and equality in terms of gender balance, gender dimension related to the system. These are the few points which are related to technology as well as processes which can make food systems sustainable or unsustainable. Now, why do we need to know all this before we go into the specific case study? Why do we want to make zero waste processes? One thing is how really we can make zero waste processes. Is it just to get some more extracts out of side stream? It's not that. It's bigger than that. So main focus is one is how do we balance economy, environment, and ecosystem. If you'll see the rotating wheel over here, we have core systems that is related to production, processing, distribution, and consumption. Then we have societal element that is organization, laws, regulation, infrastructure, and social cultural norms. And then natural element. So in order to balance economy, environment, and ecosystem, to make food really proper robust system, what are different options? We have basically three different options. One is alternative on-farm processes. That means whatever on-farm processes activities are happening after the production, during the production in terms of post-harvest treatment or post-harvest processing, or at production level, how we change the current practices so that we can achieve zero waste on farm. Second step is to deploy disruptive technologies, the technologies which can disrupt the current processes. Current processes are very energy intensive, requires a lot of water, and how we can remove or reduce the consumption of energy and water requirement. And third step is to develop zero waste approach at the processing level. So this is all how we can balance all three economy, environment, and ecosystem, and all these three steps inches ourselves towards zero waste processes. Now, first and foremost, let's go with each and every step one by one. First, when we talk about altering on-farm activities, again, these are the targets which are coming in from EU Green Deal and Farm to Fork strategy. That is 2030 target itself is how we reduce the usage of pesticides, that is chemical and hazardous pesticide which are used along agri-food chain. So that means we need a greener alternative and greener chemicals. Second is nutrient loss, that is how we can reduce dependence on nutrients or in terms of fertilizers, and how we can move towards more natural-based pesticides. Antimicrobial, this is not only related to animal and aquaculture, but also for antimicrobials or chemical antimicrobial agents which are used in the production system. And to increase organic farming by over 25%. These are the targets. And in order to achieve these, we again have to see how we can change the system per se. So the second step is all to do with the disruptive technology. So if you talk about United Nations Sustainability Developmental Goal, and here the focus is mainly on the usage of technology all the way from raw material till the end product. So if you'll see the diagram on your right, there's a raw material quality assessment. Most of the techniques which are currently used are destructive, more time consuming. So that means we'll have reduction in shelf life if you have to evaluate each and every raw material. So instead, there are a lot of alternative technologies, and some of those technologies were, I think, covered also by the previous speaker. Second is novel disinfection technologies. That means removing away from chlorine-based chemicals or any of those chemical preservatives which are used in different product. And the way these number of different steps are included, you can consider any given example and evaluate it from farm to fork. Take, for example, apples. Apple quality assessment. We have a lot of novel disinfection, novel analytical techniques which are away from destructive nature. Disinfection instead of chlorine with alternative technologies such as plasma, ozone, or natural antimicrobials. And if suppose the same apple is going for production of product, for example, apple juice, so there are a lot of alternative to thermal processing, which is again more energy intensive, as well as produces a product of with less of natural taste. Non-thermal process, high pressure ultrasonics, pulse electric field. There are a lot of range of different technology which can be deployed. And even the same apple juice, if it is used for different product or freezing the apple fruit in terms of frozen fruit. So alternative technologies to improve the quality and reduce the food waste, for example, refrigeration or pre-treatment with ultrasonics or pulse electric field, which can control the crystal size, hence improves the quality and reduces the wastage. In any given process, there will always be evitable or inevitable waste. If this does generate the waste, how we can valorize that waste and transform into range of different ingredients. For example, if apple juice is used from apple, then pomace is left over. Pomace contains a lot of different, not only bioactive ingredient, but also pectin and other biomass. How best we can valorize that to achieve zero waste. And another one in the food processes is the use of packaging material. How biodegradable packaging material or active smart packaging system can be deployed in order to avoid the usage of plastics. That is fossil fuel-based plastic material with biodegradable or compostable packaging material. And again, end product quality is the same technology, but can be used for raw material quality assessment. So there can be numerous examples. I'm not planning to go into each and every technology, but the crux of the matter here is when we look into any particular process to develop zero waste system, we need to consider all the way from production to the consumer end. We cannot focus only on the processing side of it, because any given product which is produced, there are a lot of on-farm losses, there are a lot of processing losses, waste, side stream, and byproducts generated. And if we address a systems approach, we'll be able to achieve a true zero waste processes. Now, coming back to food waste scenario. Now, why we should be focusing on zero waste? That's what is the main relevance is shown over here. If you'll see the world map, there are a lot of food waste and losses happening globally. Food losses, as per the definition, which is wasted during production, processing, post-harvest, and distribution. Food waste, which is done at the consumer end. So if we consider all the food losses and food waste happening globally, in terms of CO2 emissions, we'll be considering food waste and losses as the third biggest continent after America and before India. So it will be third biggest continent. So if we are able to achieve zero waste, we'll be easing of lot of pressure from CO2 emissions, as well as easing of the pressure from natural resources, because all this food waste and losses corresponds to almost 21% of fresh water consumption, is responsible for 19% of fertilizer. That means the fertilizer which is used to produce the crop. So that's a crop or biomass. 18% of arable land, that is again land used required to produce that crop, A, and B for landfill and area required to dispose of that material, and 25% of landfill volume. So this we can see, apart from improving the varieties, apart from improving the production practices, but one of the major issue is how we achieve zero waste. And if we are able to achieve, we are able to ease off a lot of pressure from our natural resources. So now coming again into the waste. So what are the concept and how we can reduce or how we can process it? So whatever waste is generated, first and foremost principle itself is recycling.